Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Winner's Circle Sports Betting Podcast right here on the Winner's Circle Sports Betting channel, brought to you by GamblersWorld.net, where you'll find 10 of the finest handicappers in the country today, 11 actually, as we added Ricky Tran to the mix, and he's doing very well, by the way, folks. And I'm joined today, I'm Ross Benjamin, by the way, I'm your host, and I'm joined by fellow GamblersWorld.net handicappers, Mr. Jesse Schule in the legendary, the iconic Mr. Chip Chirimbes, a guy they called Chip. His real name is Paul, but they started calling him Chip because he used to take after his father so much they called him a chip off the old block, and that's where he picked up that name. And I know I joke a lot, but that's the truth, right, Chip?
Yeah, it is true. That's absolutely true.
Yeah. All right, and Jesse, I don't know what they called you, but they're calling you Jesse still. So you definitely haven't made an impact on people enough to gather a nickname. How are you, my friend?
Well, Ross, they call me all sorts of things that I can't say on TV, but we'll talk about that off air. I finally got a winner yesterday with the Houston Astros. Depending on where and when you booked it, there was some issues with the starting pitching. Ronel Blanco, was he going to go or not? So that line was all over the place. But, the way things have been going with me for baseball lately, I need every win I can get. And, lucky to get one yesterday with the Astros.
Yeah, don't complain. It's if you're on a bad streak and you get a winner, that's going to turn you around. That's the way I look at it.
Well, and as far as bad streaks go, the middle of July is a pretty good time to go on a bad streak, I'd say.
Yeah, everybody's sleeping out there, it seems like, or on vacation, one of the two. Chip,
nobody's going to remember who was hot in mid-July come football season.
Exactly right. That's true. You know what, Chip? We talked about this on the phone last night. Jesse brought up the point about Ronel Blanco, whether he was going to start or not.
Yeah.
And I know both of us put a lot of emphasis on starting pitchers when it comes to baseball handicapping. And, of course, there's other factors that we put in, but it's a foundational starting point anyway. Correct me if I'm wrong when you retort. But these days, it used to be you were given the option for listed pitchers or action, and not a lot of the American sports books are doing that these days. And I don't know. I just think that's playing with a little bit of they already have an advantage, and then when they take away that option, it sort of puts you, the isolated situations in which it happens. Yes, I understand, but still, I mean, if your foundational starting point is your starting pitchers, it certainly makes it a little bit uncomfortable at times.
Like, Ross, you had said about playing 5-inning bets now as opposed to a full game because the starters are only going 6-7 innings if they've had a good day. But you have to have. If you're going to play the total, this is where I'm trying to get at. If you're trying to play the total, the starting pitcher means everything. I play the teams. I play the teams when we're on winning streaks, and I really sometimes don't care who's pitching because the team is hot. They're in streaks. We talked about baseball streaks all the time. So, but the total is a totally different animal because you're betting on, you said last night, so many times when you're betting a total, you're betting against a particular pitcher, not necessarily on a particular pitcher.
Well, no, that's for a money line play. I think you misunderstood me. So let me clarify, and then you continue, Chip.
No, it's all right. Go ahead.
When I'm betting against a specific pitcher, for example, I think I have a pitching advantage, or I think a pitcher is so bad that regardless of who I got pitching on my side, I'm going to go against them. I want to make sure it's a listed. I could get listed, or I could get making sure the pitcher I'm going against. There's also a home and away option on the starting pitcher. So whether that bad pitcher that I deem to be is home or away, I want to make sure he's on the mound if I'm going against him, kind of thing.
Can I chime in briefly, Ross?
Go ahead.
The kind of pitchers that you're talking about that you want to bet against, usually the reason you're looking to bet against them is because they've been getting shelled recently. And very important to get those guys listed because often they've got a shoulder issue or an elbow issue that's causing them to get rocked. And often out of nowhere, a guy gets rocked 3 or 4 times in a row and they pull him right
Yeah,
before a game starts.
exactly.
He goes on the 10-day DL with a sore shoulder,
Or
dead arm, or what have
he's
you.
got mechanical stuff going on that's
Mhm.
that he hasn't been able to correct, where they might scratch him late. You're a good point, Jesse. Go ahead, Chip. I didn't mean to cut you off, buddy.
No, that's quite. I'm just, I'm saying if you're going to bet totals, to me, the starting
Yeah.
pitcher is the most important part of the bet.
Yeah, I look at it like this. When you're betting totals, I look at if I like both starting pitchers and I like the under, um, do I want to trust the bullpens? Because basically, if both of my starting pitchers are why I like the total under, then if my starting pitchers fail me, there's a good chance I'm going to lose the game anyway. So the only time I really like to just say I'm going to take the under, completely take the under, is when I'm looking at two bullpens that are really good. Then I could trust the bullpens. But when I get bullpens, when I look at statistically over the year or recently are struggling, why do I want to trust the bullpens? And there's a lot of times, especially if a line is 8.5 and you're getting a 4.5 on the first 5, which is more than half of what the game total is. That makes it even more intriguing. So I've implemented that into my handicapping arsenal over the last couple of years. And like you, Chip, I'm old school. So it took me a long time. I used to, I don't deal with these gimmick plays, but at the end of the day, the more options you give us, the better chance we're going to have about getting betting value. Agree or no, Jess?
Absolutely agree. I love 5 inning plays because so many teams have bullpens that you just can't trust these days. And I'm going to talk about 2 of those teams tonight.
Well, let's start with you then. All right, let's get right to your game. Your beloved Toronto Blue Jays with Chris Bassett at the San Francisco Giants. Logan Webb on the mound for the Giants. I really like Logan Webb. I always have. 9:45 Eastern time start. The Giants are minus 152, and the total in this game is a very low 7. What do you got here, Jesse?
Yeah, I mean, this is the kind of game that we were talking about. I think you look at the pitching matchup, both Bassett and Webb have decent numbers. Neither Toronto or San Francisco is scaring anybody with their bats. At first glance, you could say, oh, this looks like a potential pitcher's duel. However, I don't trust either of these two bullpens, so there's no way I want to be in on an under, especially at a low number of 7 for the full game. So scratch that off my list. You look at Toronto, they're 6 games below 500 on the road, and San Francisco 7 games over 500 at home. Bassett, you look at his numbers, 7-7, 3.43 ERA, and that sounds like pretty decent numbers for a starting pitcher. But as Ross likes to do, you look at the whip and see if there's any warning signs there. A 1.42 whip doesn't look quite as good as the ERA there. And over his last 5 starts, his ERA of 2.48 looks great, but the Blue Jays have lost 5 of his last 6 starts, which is a concern for me. And he's only averaging around 5.5 innings per start, whereas you got Webb, who is the true ace for the Giants staff. He's 4-2 with a 2.13 ERA in 8 home starts. He's logged 55 innings pitched in those 8 starts, which is the important thing when you don't trust either of these two teams' bullpens. He's averaging roughly 7 innings pitched per home start. So we won't have to worry and sweat out the San Francisco bullpen for 4 or 5 innings, hopefully. And the Giants are 6-2 in Webb's 8 home starts. This price has creeped up. It opened at 140 and it's now up as high as 160 at some books. I think Ross is going to pull out a 152 for me at Heritage to back the Giants, and I appreciate that very much, Ross. We will take the home favorite in this spot.
All right, so the San Francisco Giants minus 152 over the Toronto Blue Jays. Yeah, we were joking off air because I saw the consensus line at minus 160. And that's what I gave Jesse, and he likes San Francisco. And I think I was reverting back to the days where I was on the other side of the table, working for a local bookmaker and knowing what a guy was going to do and give him the worst line. So Chipper, those kind of things happen right when you're on the other side of the table. But now I'm on the right side of the table, and that's the winning side of the table. And Chipper, tell us what you think about the San Francisco and Toronto matchup, my man.
Well, I had one side yesterday, and I had ended up with the most unlikely of wins with the Giants. And I would love to be able to come back with them again today, Ross and Jesse. But the line, it's really high. We don't like playing those kind of lines, Ross. You know that.
Yeah.
And the other factor on this thing is that I've seen a lot of action on the Giants here, and I really don't like sitting with the public and sitting with all that kind of action on the same side I have. But I do think the Giants are the side here. This Toronto team, what are they? 6 games under 500, and and they always seem to be a major disappointment year in and year out. If I was to play, I would take the Giants.
Yeah, Jesse and Chip, I think the major disappointment for Toronto is their lack of offense this year. It's just been so inconsistent. Guys across the board underachieving compared to what their career stats have been or what they've done in recent years. And case in point, over their last 9 games, they're averaging 3.1 runs scored per game. That puts a lot of pressure on teams. Yeah. To how could you win games on a consistent basis with that type of offensive production? The Giants aren't much better. 3.5 runs per game over the last 6. Jesse, I agree with you about Bassett's WHIP. It doesn't correlate to his ERA. And like I've said on numerous occasions, when your WHIP is high and your ERA doesn't match up with your WHIP, it's actually respectable or very good. It's just a matter of time before it catches up to a pitcher. But, he's been the last 4 on the road, Bassett a 108 ERA and averaging over 6 innings pitched per start. And Webb, like you alluded to, 8 home starts, a 2.13 ERA, 6.9 innings pitched per start. Jesse, you said around 7 innings, which is almost exact. So a lot of good things to look at that matchup. If I was to look at anything, I would eliminate both bullpens. I would lean toward the under in the first 5, but it's not a favorable situation for me. I would have loved it if the first 5 was at 4, but it's right exactly at the 50% mark, 3.5, and the game total 7. So I'm going to stay away from this game. All right, Chipper, before we get to you, a real friendly reminder, folks, if you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, which is the Winner's Circle Sports Betting channel, please take a second to do so. Hit that subscribe button, or if you're on your PC, hit that WC logo in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. That gets you subscribed absolutely free. There's no strings attached, folks. There's no hidden agenda. Nobody's going to swarm you with phone calls or emails just because you signed up for free to our YouTube channel. So that rest assured on that. And while you're at it, click on the alert notification bell in your YouTube settings for the Winner's Circle Sports Betting channel, and you'll be notified immediately upon any of our future podcasts, which are 5 times a week going up on our great channel. Okay, Chipper, your beloved New York Yankees and my beloved New York Yankees, boy, it's hard to say that the way they're playing these days, are traveling to Tampa Bay to take on the Rays. The Rays won the opening game of the series yesterday, 5-3. It'll be Marcus Stroman, who, like many of the Yankee starters, that rotation looks so good for the better part of the first half of the season. And now it seems like it's been a snowball effect, and misery likes company, because all the starting rotation has just seemed to struggle badly over the last few weeks, along with their bullpen. And that's not a good combination. It'll be Zach Eflin for the Tampa Bay Rays, 6:50 p.m. Eastern time start. The Rays should tell you something. The Rays are minus 120 money line home favorite here, Chip, and the total is 8.
It's amazing what's happened to the Yankees. And here they were. They were 51-20, I believe, 31 games over 500. And you mentioned their pitching staff, Ross. their ERA was one of the tops in Major League Baseball at under 3 for the starters. And now, during this losing streak, I think they've won only 5 of the last 21, something along those lines.
Yep.
Their ERA has been over 6 for the starters. So the pitching has certainly contributed for the most part. And of course, Aaron Judge has calmed down a little bit. I mean, he's slowed down. I think he's only 2 for his last 20. But this losing streak has covered a lot more than that territory. Um, it's amazing. And now they're facing this Zach Eflin. I think that's how you pronounce his name.
Yes.
And he's 5-5 this year, but he has been what we would call the Frank Larry of today's game. In other words, a Yankee killer, particularly Judge, who he struck out 6 straight times the last 6 appearances. He's 3-1 with a 1.54 ERA against the New York Yankees in lifetime. He got bombed last time out by the Royals. So I expect a little comeback here by Zach. And Marcus Stroman, who started out so well and is such an emotional player for the Yankees, has really hit the doldrums as well. He's now 7-4. This Rondon got beat last night. I think it was his 5th straight loss, and 5th straight loss as a starter. And the Yankees just, they lost their karma. They lost their mojo, and I can't play on them. Baseball is a game of streaks, and you have to wait for them to come out of this streak right now. I just can't play the Yankees. I would play Tampa Bay here without any question. And the line is small. Tampa's favored over the Yankees. And, Ross, this was a year I figured that Tampa they were the team that was going to be on the outs this year. But they're starting to play a little bit better right now. And goodness me, there's no one that's been worse than the Yankees in the last 4 weeks.
Yeah, and you mentioned Tampa Bay doesn't have as good a record, and they're playing a Yankees team, and they're minus 120 in this game. So,
Yep.
All right, I'm sort of having some technical difficulties here, and I don't know why. But Jesse, what's your take here?
Yeah, Chipper used the word emotional to describe Marcus Stroman, and I think that's a very accurate description. I'm quite familiar with Stroman from his time with the Blue Jays, and I'm well aware that this guy, when he lets something get in his head, he really can get down on himself and get into the doldrums, like Chipper said. And when he's struggling, you got to look at his long-term numbers against the Tampa Rays. 6-8 with a 4.59 ERA in 17 appearances versus Tampa. No way you want to be backing the Yankees on this losing streak with a pitcher that is not looking good right now. So I agree with Chip with the Tampa Rays.
All right, I'm having some technical difference. I don't know if you guys could hear that beeping. I don't know what that is.
I think it's Jim in the background causing interference with his cell phone.
Yeah, well, I don't know what it is, but the screen has gone black on me. So my game is the Dodgers and the Phillies. The Phillies minus 135 and 9.5. I'm going to look at the total in this game, which is 9.5. And yes, the winds are blowing out 15 miles an hour to left center, and that's caused the total to go from its opening number of 9 to 9.5. 2 starters that are just about the same. Both starters have drastic home and away splits and night and day splits, meaning one is better at home than on the road, and the other better on the road than at home. And each of these guys are better at night than during the day. Gavin Stone, he has 7 road starts this year with a 2.30 ERA and a 1.02 WHIP. He's averaged over 6 innings pitched per start, and only allowed 2 home runs in 43 innings pitched on the road this year, which is a big deal because Philly, the ballpark in Philadelphia is a hitter's friendly ballpark, and you combine that with the winds blowing out. His last 6 on the road, he had a terrible road debut this year, but his last 6 on the road, an 0.90 ERA and 0.88 WHIP, and averaging 6.7 innings pitched per start. So he's been very good on the road. Christopher Sanchez, 9 starts at home this year, a 1.35 ERA, an 0.90 WHIP, 58 strikeouts against 9 walks. That's tremendous numbers. And 13 starts at night with a 2.61 ERA, and he's only allowed 2 home runs and 97 in the 3rd innings pitched in his night starts. Both of these bullpens are very good. The Dodgers number 3 and Philadelphia number 4 in bullpen ERA. The Dodgers are also number 2 in bullpen WHIP. And the Phillies are number 1 in Major League Baseball in least amount of home runs allowed with 23. So I like the bullpens. This is one of those situations. I like both bullpens. I like both starting pitchers. We're getting a very high number because of the ballpark it's being played in. These teams' reputation for offensive prowess and the wind blowing out. So I am going to go under the total here, guys. I'm going to take the Dodgers and the Phillies under 9.5. Jesse?
Makes plenty of sense to me, Ross. Both these teams having injuries to their battery isn't going to hurt either. So, and with the proximity to the All-Star break, I think both teams could be a little bit less excited about this matchup as they might be otherwise.
All right, and Chipper?
Ross, you said the total on this game was 9.5. Did you not?
Yes, I did.
And when I looked at both these starters and all the numbers you've given me, I think that's an excessively high number. I mean, Stone has been he's got 9 wins, and Sanchez has been one of the best pitchers for the Phillies. I think that's a very high number, and my instinct would be to play over. Now, I know you have the under on this, and I'm not saying this is not a game that I would look at to play in the first place. But with these 2 starting pitchers, I was very surprised that this is an 8 or 8.5. And you said 9.5, but like you said, the wind is blowing out, and it's a tough call. This number just has me perplexed. It really does. I would play it over instinctively because of the pitch effectiveness of both starters on each side.
Yeah, and I know how you think there, Chip, and I most times will join you in that respect, but it did open at 9. It went to 9.5 specifically. And here's the other thing, too. We're looking at a Philadelphia team. They're coming off a 10-1 win yesterday. The Phillies have gone under in 7 straight games after scoring 8 or more in their previous game. And the Dodgers scored 1 run yesterday, obviously, and I'm back, thank God. The Dodgers are 4-1 to the under in their last 5 after scoring 1 run or less. Yeah. So I have to look at the whole body of work here, Chip. And not only that, I look at the betting splits on this game, betting trends, splits, right. And a lot of money in terms of money bet on the over and the volume of tickets so far. A bet on the over in this game are a very high percentage. So it's, again,
I find that surprising, Ross, considering, like I said, these 2 pitchers on the mound. I do.
Well, you remember, I think Philly scoring 10 runs yesterday, and I'm certainly not arguing with your logic, because more times than not, that's the way I think, right? Yeah, but also Schwarber back in the lineup. Also, Bryce Harper back in the lineup. Those guys were out for an extended period of time, and they put up 10 runs yesterday. And I think that has a lot to do with it. And sometimes I think people look at the overall numbers instead of how I isolated those numbers, home and away and night and day. And you brought up a good point earlier. Was it you that brought up a good point? Yeah. You said about the Yankees. And you said, look, the Yankees, if you still look at their overall statistics, they're right up there in top 10 in terms of pitching ERA, or right around the top 10. And now, but over the last 3 weeks, they're over 6 ERA. That's what I always tell you, folks. Don't get caught up in baseball with the overall statistics unless they match what they've done recently. So in other words, if the Yankees were top 10 and over the last 3 weeks, their team ERA was like 3.01 or less, that takes significance. But when their ERA for the season's in the 3s and their ERA over the last 3 weeks is 6, you got to take that into consideration. Yeah. Jesse, how many times have you heard me say that? Where it's 100, it's not like football. This is a 162 game season. There's going to be a lot of ups and downs in specific categories. Very seldom does a team be consistent in one specific category throughout the entirety of the year.
Well, Chipper said that given the numbers that these 2 pitchers have put together, the total seems a little bit high. But I would point out that I think from a casual bettor's point of view, Gavin Stone and Chris Sanchez don't really ring bells the way that Aaron Nola and Zach Wheeler ring bells.
That too. Yep.
Gavin Stone's having a great year, but I bet you there's a handful of guys out there that are betting this game that think Gavin Stone's a bum just because they're thinking about his previous seasons and they're not familiar with his stats, his up-to-date stats.
Yeah, and Gavin Stone's ERA is like a run and a half more at home than on the road, and the same apply. Christopher Sanchez has a 1.35 ERA at home. Okay, and on the road he's been not bad, but his numbers at home are dominant. So that's what I'm looking at. Anyway, good point though.
I got a question for you, Ross.
Yeah.
Of the people that actually bet this game, what percentage of them do you think know all these numbers? If you had to guess,
I would say less than 5%.
Really?
Yeah, and
Wow.
I think that that's the numbers that I just rattled off, the home and away splits and all that.
I mean, I think my question was designed to just the pertinent numbers. Your typical the numbers that you would be disappointed in me if I didn't know.
I think I'm being kind when I say less than 5%. It's probably a lot lower than that. So
well, I know in the past, like 10 years ago, nobody had access to this.
Yeah.
There wasn't as many resources to get all these advanced stats for people, and most people were going off the newspapers, right? Newspaper stats. But the things have changed. I mean, people are getting a little bit bettors are getting more savvy. I'm just wondering how savvy they're getting.
Yeah, I don't think they're as savvy as any one of us. The people who are doing
Let's hope not.
Yeah, well, look, I gave you an example. I mean, I gave you Gavin Stone's. Was it Gavin Stone that I gave you? Yeah, Gavin Stone's ERA on the road. Where is it here? I mean, his ERA on the road is 2.30. But how many people know he had a real bad start in his road debut this year? How many people will take the time to figure out what his ERA and WHIP was in his next 6 road starts, which is 0.90 ERA and 0.88 WHIP? So, yeah, I think there definitely people are in Chipper. I'm interested to hear what you have to say on this topic. To answer your question, Jesse, I think people are, yes, more savvy than they've ever been.
Yeah.
From a recreational standpoint, for the very reasons you just said, Jesse. But still, there's still that thing about us doing it full time and being able to have the time to dig it deeper, and us doing nothing else but this for a living puts us at a distinct advantage, especially when you give us the data that's provided for us that wasn't there 10 or 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Chip?
Ross, you're amazing with these numbers that you come with. And I mean, you do your due diligence, that's for sure. It's a lot of work put into this. And like you said, this is how you make your living. And numbers don't lie. Men and women do, but the numbers are the truth. And, it's amazing to me when you come up with these numbers sometimes while we're talking in these stats, and they weren't available 10 years ago, like you said, and they weren't available 20 years ago.
I wouldn't have been rattling off this 10 years ago, Chip.
Everything has evolved, and the whole game has changed now with all the props and everything else. I mean, we used to have 2 sides. We'd have an over/under and a side. Now you've got just about everything. You can bet a quarter, you can bet a half, you can bet individuals.
And some books wouldn't have run lines back in the day.
How this has evolved. I never anticipated it would ever get like this.
And Jesse, I'm going to let you finish the statement because Chip started it. Numbers don't lie, and
liars don't figure.
There you go. We'll leave you with that. But anyway, Chipper, tell the folks a little bit about what you got going on today and what you foresee in the future here at gamblesworld.net. Football on the horizon, buddy. 4 weeks away, the NFL preseason. But right now, it's all about baseball. And I know that you're a very good baseball handicapper. Chipper, tell the folks a little bit about yourself and why they should spend their hard-earned money on Paul Chip Chirimbes over at gamblersworld.net.
Well, Ross, it's simple. Chip wins. I mean, we're sitting here in an incredible megabuck streak right now. We've won 17 of our last 21 top-rated plays, and we're 42 and 18 overall. It's been an incredible streak for us. You know, we had hit, I think, 17 and 2 Ross over a 3-week period, and then lost 8 straight games, and now bounced back with 9 out of 10 side winners. And I did have a total that went down that when they had a pitcher switch, Sale was supposed to have been throwing. But I have one game today, Wednesday, July 10th. And, you know, today is a significant day in Major League Baseball because in 1968, the powers that be decided to divide baseball into 2 different divisions in the following year, which would be 1969, which was a blessing for the New York Mets, who had never even been at 500 because that's the year they won their first World Series. But I have one game up there tonight, Ross, so I'm very confident. When I single out this single play, I'm not worried about any other game out there. I'm just looking for my big winner.
There you go. Chip Chirimbes over at gamblersworld.net. And like the rest of us, his picks are guaranteed. If you don't win, you don't make a profit, we will credit your account back the exact amount of your purchase price. And Chip, I wanted to bring it up that you're a baseball historian. You just provided that info for us. But the part about Zach Eflin and comparing him to, what's that guy's name, Larry? I mean, how far back does that go, the Yankee killer?
Frank Larry goes back to the 50s, and this is when the Yankees really did control all of baseball. He pitched for Detroit Tigers, and they every year, the press and everyone else were trying to get Frank Larry to the Yankees. The Yankees were trying to buy him. They were doing anything because they didn't want to face him, and he was known as the Yankee killer.
Yeah, when Jesse, in the 50s, you weren't born yet, and your father was only 10, so you can't help us out in that regard. But what do you got going on, Jess, over at gamblesworld.net, or what do you foresee for the rest of the week?
I'll tell you, I just want to say that I appreciate these segments with Chip and this historical knowledge. I'm a real history buff myself, and I'm thinking maybe I should cancel my subscription to the History Channel and just get Chip's phone number and call and talk to him for an hour a day, and I'll be all good. But
Yeah.
as far as what I have going on this week, one big play, a 5% CFL play over the weekend, and that will test a 75% run with CFL dating back to last September, 60% the last decade with CFL. 60% with any sport for a decade is pretty profitable, as you can imagine. So everybody's going to want to get that CFL play. Of course, I've got a baseball play up for sale at gamblersworld.net tonight, but to be honest with you, the way my baseball's running, I'd probably go with Chipper or Ross for baseball and just come see me for CFL.
Yeah, I mean, the CFL, the other thing about the CFL, you're not going to get the volume of games. So 60% is good no matter how you cut it, folks. But, if a guy's hitting at that high a percentage, he's not giving out every game either. So you're not going to get overwhelmed with a lot of picks, right, Jesse? I mean, you might have 1 or 2 a week, I take it.
Yeah, I mean, when I say 60% for a decade, we're talking about 200 or 300 games in that decade, probably about 50 games a year, something along those lines. But, there's only 4 games a week. There's only 6 or 7 teams in the league, depending on the season. So, it's not like, or maybe there's 8 teams, but yeah, it's a small league. There's not a lot of volume, but you pick your spots, and that has been profitable for me and my clients over the years.
So here's what I'm taking away from these conversations, folks. Okay. You need to purchase Jesse's CFL picks this coming week. And you need to keep an eye on Chipper's Megabucks plays. Not only this year, I've been working with Chip for quite a while now. We've had a relationship for quite a while now. And I can tell you unequivocally, and I don't lie when it comes to stats. I know a lot of you who have followed me over the years know that. If anything, I'm honest to a fault in this industry. Chipper hits a very, very high percentage of his Megabucks play. Yeah. And football season, when it comes upon us, he's going to have one each week in the NFL and college football. And you need to zero in on those as well as his baseball Megabucks plays. You could find me at gamblersworld.net as well. I'm on a modest, let's see here. I went 2-1 last night in Major League Baseball. So a modest 21-16 run. which by our grading system, I've made about $1,400 during that course of time. A lot of you out there are going to go 21-16. This is since June 21st. Isn't that good? Well, you know what, folks? Again, I think I talked about this yesterday in the show. Jesse, excuse me if I got to repeat it again. Baseball is a long season, okay? So you have to grind it out. Like Chipper said, he was red hot. He loses 8 in a row. He comes back and wins 9 out of 10. It's a long year, folks, okay? So there's going to be ups and downs. The difference between us three and everybody else at gamblersworld.net, there's a hell of a lot more ups than there are downs. And that's what I'm going to leave you with. So, Jesse, there's a like button underneath.
Smash that like button.
Smash that like button, folks. Just a small token of your appreciation for the time, work, and effort we put into bringing you a quality podcast each and every day. And it's been our theme since we started this show 3 years ago. It continues to be and always will be. We want to make you a smarter sports bettor today than you were yesterday. For Jesse Schule, Chip Chirimbes, and Ross Benjamin, take care and God bless, folks.